Get into it. Julian Assange is a free man. Free man. I don't know how free he's going to be, but if you haven't heard, he has made a plea deal. He has accepted a plea deal. Now, the thing about it is he's not being exonerated and proved to not have broken any laws. He has to admit to being guilty to something, and then he's able to walk free, and then he's going to go back to Australia waiting. I believe his father's still alive. I'm not sure if his mother's still alive. There's a wife. I believe he has children as well. So all in all, for a man who's been kept inside of an embassy and then a prison, this is a very good time for him. But we're going to start from the top. I'm going to show you a little breakdown of who this gentleman actually is. And then I'm going to and why he's so hated in Washington and throughout the journalistic world, which is very odd because he is almost he is the epitome of a journalist, and he has gone through the absolute worst case scenario a journalist can go through. Now, I'm going to show you that. Then I'm going to show you a couple of breakdowns in terms of the case, what actually happened, his conditions, everything of that nature, and then also his father is going to speak. But let's start right at the top with who Julian Assange is and why he is so hated. Let's get into it.
Julian Assange is one of the greatest journalists of our age. He spent his entire adult life bringing previously concealed facts to the public about what our leaders are doing. That is the very definition of journalism. Yet Julian Assange is not a hero in America's newsrooms. He's an enemy. Assange made the mistake of offending the media's real constituency, which is not the public, but the powerful. For doing this, journalists accuse Assange of being what they are, a political operative posing as a reporter. In 2010, Assange and his organization, WikiLeaks, published an enormous cache of secret documents that revealed what the U.S. government had been doing in Iraq. Included was a 38-minute gun sight video that depicted.
Now, this video I actually can't show you. It has some terrible imagery in it, but he did find this video. You can find, if you're on X, and again, I know a lot of you want nothing to do with X because of how you feel about Elon, but it is somewhere where you can actually see this video. It is not something that you can show on YouTube, so I'm just going to skip that. We're going to keep going, but if I had to just give you a breakdown, it shows what really happened on a certain day when it comes to some men who were unalived, deleted, whatever you want to call it, whatever is acceptable to say on this platform. And it was counter to the narrative that was put out into the mainstream at the time. Let's get into it.
Video didn't even exist. Assange proved that it did. A few years later, Assange upended a presidential race by publishing a trove of internal emails from the Democratic Party. Democrats claimed the emails had been hacked by the Russian government, but they hadn't been. That was a lie. The emails had been leaked from within the DNC itself, almost certainly by a disgruntled employee. Those emails proved that Hillary Clinton's campaign had rigged the 2016 Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders. It was the scoop of the decade, but it was only one of many that Julian Assange broke. For the crime of upstaging them and embarrassing their patrons, the media hated Julian Assange even more.
And especially with Assange, what bothers me the most is that he hides under this sort of broad definition of a journalist. And we have to come out and say that this is not, stealing and using disinformation for a foreign government is not journalism.
This is a no-brainer. This guy, Julian Assange, directed and led an organization that led to the largest breach of classified information in U.S. history. This is not some do-gooder whistleblower.
Assange is a criminal. He's damaged national security. Assange isn't a journalist.
He's a criminal, squeaked the faithful servants of power. Embarrassed governments around the world agreed. The government of Sweden, acting in concert with British authorities, charged Assange with a fake sex crime. He's a they said. Global media amplified the lie. Ultimately, the charges were dropped for lack of evidence. But by that point, Julian Assange was a prisoner. He'd been driven into internal exile in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he sought political asylum. He spent more than 7 years there, unable to leave. Then, in 2017, Assange broke his last big story. WikiLeaks revealed the existence of an illegal CIA spying program. Assange withheld most of the details of that program so as not to compromise American national security. But the story was still deeply humiliating to the CIA. In Washington, CIA Director Mike Pompeo decided to murder him. Pompeo discussed with his deputies how the CIA might kidnap Assange from the embassy in London.
Now, just given that little bit of information, and we're going to touch on that near the end because, that is a question that I have. Let's get back to the good part, which is the fact that this man gets to be free. This is him leaving a car, not in cuffs for the first time in a very long time. That's him right there. He gets to leave. Of course, people are asking him all sorts of questions. What he plans on doing next.
The weather here in London.
Whether or not he likes the weather. And that's him experiencing a very incredible day, I'm sure. All because he decided to stand up and speak. This is the worst form of buck breaking I've ever seen. Usually that term's in place for black people who stand up and are a little too cocky and they get broken down by Hollywood, the entertainment industry. But that is definitely not something that just happens to people of color anymore. That is something that happens to all of us who step outside of the narrative a little too much. Now, let's go to the news breakdown so we can actually understand the case and what's going on a little bit better. I'm going to play this clip and then another one where his dad actually speaks. And then we'll start to touch on the question of what is his fate after leaving this prison, these embassies, and actually being free.
Well, let's get back to our breaking news. This is the Fox News alert. The U.S. government has entered into a plea deal with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Fox News senior national correspondent Kevin Cork has more details. Kevin.
Evening, Kaylee. Assange had faced 18 counts from a 2019 indictment for his alleged role in a breach. And that, of course, carried a maximum of up to 175 years in prison. Now, you'll recall Assange was being pursued by U.S. authorities for publishing confidential records supplied by former Army intel analyst Chelsea Manning. That happened back in 2010 and 2011. U.S. officials allege that Assange goaded him or them into obtaining thousands of pages of unfiltered U.S. diplomatic cables that potentially endanger confidential sources. The material also apparently included U.S.-Iraq war-related activity reports and information related to Guantanamo Bay detainees. But tonight, Assange has agreed to plead guilty to a felony charge. And as part of a deal with the DOJ, he will avoid imprisonment here in the U.S. Now, under this new deal, DOJ prosecutors will seek a 62-month sentence, which is equal to the amount of time that Assange has already served in London, allowing him to immediately return to his native country of Australia. Now, this deal still has to be approved by a judge, a federal judge, but it would appear tonight that Julian Assange may be on his way home. Kaylee.
Interestingly, coming after just a few weeks ago, President Trump said he would consider pardoning Assange, and then we get this.
I said the exact same thing. They're getting this done this week. I think they've been working on it, but this is a bit of taking a little steam out of the former president's sails, perhaps, by the Biden administration. But by any measure, it's a very big day for Julian Assange.
Great.
Very much so. So that's what's going on in terms of the case. You may hear a couple of bits of information that are the same in this one, but they also get to interviewing his dad. So I think that is a valuable piece of information to hear right now. Let's go.
Breaking news right now. Julian Assange is moments from arriving at a court on Saipan Island, where he's expected to enter a guilty plea and finally be allowed to return home.
Let's go live to 9 US correspondent Lauren Tomasi, who's following all these developments for us from LA. Lauren, Assange could fly out by lunchtime.
Yeah, in just a matter of hours, guys, this is big breaking news this morning. Julian Assange now touching down on the US territory of the Northern Mariana Islands. That is where he will front a US federal judge this morning and finalise this plea deal with the US Justice Department. And after that is signed and sealed, he will be a free man allowed to head home to Australia after 14 years. This saga began back in 2010 when the WikiLeaks founder released video, classified military video from the United States of a strike on innocent unarmed civilians in Iraq. It sparked what would become an infamous WikiLeaks page, and the legal battles of Julian Assange began. He has now made that trip from the UK after spending 5 years in the high security Belmarsh prison, stopping over in Bangkok before arriving in this island nation this morning. And if you're wondering why he is facing court in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it is because as part of this plea deal, Julian Assange was very hesitant to set foot on the continental United States, and so he and the US Justice Department came to an agreement that he would face that court in a US territory. It is now just a matter of hours until he will go before that judge to have this plea deal finalised. It is a tentative and delicate situation as we get to the end of this long-running saga. His brother speaking out.
We've been told by the doctors who assessed him that he can recover from this. So I think that's the time for him now, is to rest and to recover. But we're just so, as Julian's family, we're overjoyed.
So there is now this one final hurdle for Julian Assange before he becomes a free man, bringing to an end a saga which has spanned continents and countries. It has been a long time coming. The Australian government right behind Julian Assange, and he does have a top Australian diplomat with him. We are expecting Julian Assange to leave that island around lunchtime. He will land in Australia early evening tonight.
More now on Julian Assange's movements. The WikiLeaks founder currently on his way to Saipan, where he will stand trial.
Chief Regional Correspondent of Prime News, Thomas Manglona, is there and joins us live with the latest. Thomas, thanks for your time. Now, why is this trial, being held in Saipan?
Hafiz Antiro from Saipan, a U.S. territory in the Northern Mariana Islands. Yes, that's one of the biggest questions that was asked yesterday, not just locally, but also internationally. And so according to a Department of Justice and U.S. attorneys court filing that we were able to obtain through the U.S. District Court, there are two reasons that we've heard of. Number one, Assange apparently did not want to enter his plea in the continental U.S. And number two, Saipan and the Mariana Islands is closest to his home country of citizenship. And so those are the seemingly simple reasons why all eyes are on Saipan. This morning, just as the sun rises, we're outside of the Saipan International Airport, where in just a few minutes or under half an hour, I believe, behind me, we'll see Assange's plane land and see him make his way to the courthouse where his hearing is set to begin in about 2 or 3 hours.
What are we expecting out of that, Thomas? Is it more a procedural thing?
That is what has been reported, but of course we know that even when a plea deal is reached, a federal judge, a U.S. District Court federal judge in this case, will have to accept that. So we're expected to hear a back and forth discussion about that arrangement. And as it's been widely reported, he's expected to just spend a few hours here and immediately return to Australia at the end of the court proceedings. But of course, it's not over till it's over, and we can only speculate at this point. But we'll be heading to the courthouse following Assange along the roadway as he enters the district court.
So he is currently in Australia, just in case you're wondering. And you know what? I do not hate on him for not wanting to go to the U.S. He's just like, it's not even just stepping in and like, oh, they might take me away in cuffs. Think way worse. Who knows what could happen to him, And this will be the question that we're talking about a little bit after we go through the interview with his father. But I just wanted to jump over to that really quick. Could you imagine 14 years of this after doing the right thing? People calling you a criminal. We're going to talk about those little tactics that they use, because I can think of another journalist who got fired from somewhere who started his own network. It's doing amazingly. That got those same type of accusations thrown at him for interviewing a certain world leader. Let's get into this real quick. We'll talk about that after.
For him to return home to Australia, his father, John, joins us now live in Canberra. John, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. Gee, it's a big morning for you. How are you feeling?
It's a day of joy after 15 years being in one form of incarceration or the other. And Julian hasn't been home, I think, in 16 years. So it's really a joyous day for us.
I can see the joy written all over your face. Take us inside that, if you will, my man.
Well, instead of using the alarm to wake up, I sort of wake up automatically and run around the place looking for a broom to sweep the floor, that sort of thing. That's the general preparation.
When do you expect him home?
I guess, the government tells me that he'll be flying in tonight in Canberra. So I'm at their beck and call. I'm sitting here in Alivio Tourist Park, waiting for instructions from the government what to do and where to go.
Look, I know it's been a big haul legally. When he gets back, after he spends some time with his family, is Julian the sort of guy who's going to quietly walk off into the sunset, do you think, or do you think he'll have plenty to say?
Yeah, well, for myself, I hope his life is a bit smoother, so to speak, and he spends a year or so just learning again how to walk along the beach and feel the sand come through your feet, and playing with kids and learn how to have the patience to play with your kids for a few hours, that sort of thing. Ordinary life really is just my interest. What he does outside of the beauty of ordinary life is just up to him.
That is beautifully said. From what I know, from what I've seen and read about Julian, I can't imagine a plea deal would have been right up there on his agenda. Was that difficult for him to stomach?
I haven't spoken to him, or actually I haven't spoken to anybody involved in the negotiations or the diplomatic to and fro's to get Julian back to Australia. My sole job is to generate the support which underlies the capacity of the government to make these decisions and to assist Julian. That's my job. So, my job now is finished, and I can give up the microphone, much to everybody's pleased.
What measure of relief for you, my man? What measure of relief?
Yeah, I just look forward to a big hookup with my friends that I haven't seen for 10 years now around the world, and that sort of thing, and have a laugh and maybe allow myself the third glass of wine, maybe.
Well, you deserve it. It's being in the big hall. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Man, that's actually really sad. Right as he was finishing, I just had the realization that when your kid is locked up, you are locked up too. He has been going through this probably every day, the exact same way. Man, that's sad. That's really sad. Because he sounds the same way. He sounds like, oh, I'm gonna, get back to life because, finally his oldest son is free. Wild stuff. Wild stuff. And the question is, that question that he was asked, what is he going to do next? A lot of people want to see him do an interview with Tucker. Tucker has been one of the only people that I know of that's spoken about it, at least, to actually visit him. I think Glenn Greenwald has also been in touch with him, or his wife. It was kind of hard to get in touch with him directly, but Tucker Carlson visited him. A lot of people want to see him and Tucker sit down so they can talk about everything. But who knows? Maybe he just wants to chill. Maybe he's just like, hey man, I gave you guys everything I could give you. The lady who I exposed is still walking free. She doused her emails in her laptops with bleach. You guys didn't do anything about it. I'm good. I thought the world would change based on what I showed you, but you know, maybe I'm just gonna sit it out. You guys handle it. You know, I don't know. If I was him, I'd be a little disappointed in that fact. You know, he didn't stand up just to stand up. You know, it was 14 years ago. Nobody knew about views and likes and all that stuff. That stuff didn't have the same currency that it does today. So he wasn't doing it for all that. Definitely wasn't doing it for money. And it didn't help in regards to notoriety because the first few years he was labeled as all sorts of terrible things. You know, it's funny. That post that I showed you, the first one where he's actually free, that is a post from Candace Owens there. And she's calling him a hero, of course. And Tucker Carlson actually posted this and said, a good man finally free. The tide is turning. And we'll see. We'll see if he steps back into the arena. You know, Tucker Carlson talks about something, and he was touching on it. It was the last thing from that video where he's talking about Mike Pompeo and how Mike Pompeo allegedly, because I don't know, I have not seen any of the documents or anything like that, wanted Assange poisoned. Now, it's very sad, and I'll jump from that to this, because Pompeo was on board with Trump, and I think, and again, everybody knows I'm a Trump supporter, that is the one thing from Trump that I'm a little disappointed at, but I kind of am starting to understand exactly what happened. Trump had the opportunity to pardon Julian Assange, but if what Tucker's saying about Pompeo is correct, well then Pompeo definitely went to Trump, and whether he intimidated him or just convinced him or gave him some information that made him, think about not doing it. Either way, he didn't do it. He didn't pardon Assange. And then all throughout Biden's presidency, he didn't either. And the only reason Biden's doing it now is because Trump said he was going to do it when he got in office. So I don't care who does it. In this case, I don't care who does it. As long as it gets done and he gets to go home, it's a fantastic thing. But it does make sense. If what Tucker's saying is true, and he did try to do that to Assange, well, then it makes sense why Trump didn't pardon him, because Pompeo was in Trump's ear. Very, very sad. I hope Trump has learned his lesson from having the wrong people around him. I hope he has much better people around him. There's a lot of speculation. I'm going to make another video about it. A lot of speculation that we're about to see Vivek take the VP slot, which honestly, in regards to the right people around you, would be wonderful, because Vivek wants to see a 75% reduction in government jobs across the board. He wants to see agencies split up, splintered up, and just kind of like JFK style, thrown into the wind. He wants to do away with a lot of these people, a lot of these jobs, wants to get rid of them. And he's talked about the legal processes that he knows that Trump and him would have the power to actually make all of this happen. So that would be very, very interesting to see. But this is about Julian right now, and he's free. And I'm just wondering what you guys would like to see from him first. Honestly, I have had friends go to jail for a long time. One of them was like 10 or 12 years. And when he came back, you know, they just want real simple things. They want to see a lady. They want a burger. They want regular things. They want to see their mom. They want to see their dad. They want to see their friends. They want to laugh. They want to chill. They want to look into the sky. They want to be able to just walk around and not have anybody tell them what to do. So I suspect Julian's going to be doing a whole lot of that, and he deserves it. 100% he deserves it. But I just want to close off with the tactics real quick. I know this video is a little long. The tactics that they were using, calling him a Russian agent, they did that to Tucker, they did that to Tulsi. Man, saying that he's not a journalist. Jon Stewart was working in tandem with the mainstream media, probably taking talking points from something above, saying that he's not a journalist, saying that Tucker wasn't a journalist, all because he decided to interview Putin. Same tactic was being used on Assange. This is something that I guess they've been doing for more than 20 years now. Every time someone steps up, they go with the assault stuff in regards to, women in this and that, and then they go to misinformation, then they go to Russian agent, then they go to this person's not a journalist. It's very sad to see that these tactics are still being used. Very happy to see that a lot of people are waking up to them, and just very interesting that the same tactics they used on Tucker, they were using on Assange just decades ago. And if you notice in that little compilation that I was playing in this clip, there's a lot of journalists who are saying this, and you guys should remember those journalists. Megyn Kelly was one of them, sitting there having somebody say that this guy's not a journalist. Be clear, she shook her head yes and said he's terrible, and she agreed right along with it. That's a very sad thing to see. People change. Tucker's changed. People change. But just wanted to say that really quick. Guys, it's a great day. It's a great time in journalism. If he comes back to journalism, it'll be a gift from the heavens, because he's going to be a voice that has a whole lot of weight. And from what I know, WikiLeaks might still I'm not even sure if they still exist. And I already know so much about people watching me that I'm not going to search for that website right now. Maybe when I'm more protected, but hopefully he steps back into the arena. But if he doesn't, I completely understand. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to bring you all that really quick. I know it's a long episode. I apologize for that. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and other than that, I'm out.